J Motty here for Scotty and Motty, which means that, Scotty, how we doing, brother?
After this weekend?
Yes.
I'm glad it's international break, and you won't get me saying that very often.
No, it's not really a sentiment you hear very often in this studio, to be honest with you. I don't think any of us are keen.
I need a rest, Jake,
international football fans. Yes, it couldn't have been much of a worse weekend from a Manchester United point of view. The loss at Arsenal, the story about the Glazers staying, the fallout between Jadon Sancho and Erik Ten Hag. It has all been happening. None of it really positive, but get involved in the comments and the chat. Hit that like button as well. We want to hear what your thoughts are on what has been a bit of a shit show at Manchester United Football Club. We'll start with, let's do it chronologically.
Yeah.
So the first bit of bad news was Saturday night. An article in the Daily Mail, which you may or may not believe, because I know it's the Daily Mail, so pinch of salt, that the Glazers are staying, that they're going to pull the plug on the proposed takeover. They're not going to accept the bid from either Sheikh Jassim or Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and they're just going to wait until, I think, 2025, because they feel they can get more money for Manchester United Football Club. Two questions. A, do you believe it? And what do you make of that?
I do believe it, on the basis that nothing would surprise me with the Glazers, and the fact that it's taken this long, and we've had so many rounds of bids come in from the same two pairing for the last, 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
I think it would have happened by now if it was happening, and I can't imagine them two would be hanging around hoping to get hold of Manchester United, because they must be frustrated as well, because they've would have spent a shitload of money to get, it's not free, just like it's not night shopping on bloody eBay, is it? No. It's like Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim at home outbidding each other.
Buy it now.
It'd be easier like that. They should have done it that way, to be honest, because then you put like a time limit on it.
Yeah.
And then whoever's got the highest solved all the problems. But
United on eBay.
I do believe it, and I wasn't surprised. I saw the sort of outroar as you'd expect, and rightly so, from frustrated fans across social media. And I'm all for protesting, and I find it very admirable. The sit-ins, and I've been to the ones outside the ground until I got told off by my paymasters at the BBC. Told me I can't go to any more protests. So I'm all for that. I just think that they're going to do whatever they want to do, as has been evident throughout their entire reign of Manchester United, and it has become a shambles. I try not to let it cloud my day to day, because life can be hard enough without getting involved in the frustrations. You can't control the ownership, is what I'm probably trying to say, as much as you can kick off about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like chucking rocks at the moon.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I do take part in the protests, and we do publicise them on Stretford Paddock, and I spoke to Steve from the 1958 last week, spoke to him a couple of times, and I think they do a good job of sort of, flying the flag in the face of the Glazers and long may it continue. Well, hopefully it doesn't have to continue that long, because they'll be going. But this wasn't that much of a shock, this story. And again, it might not be true, but you think, like you said, 11 months since we had this statement about strategic alternatives. We've had several rounds of bids featuring several companies, hedge funds and individuals. We've got to what appeared to be the end game, where it was, according to most reports, it was between Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim, and you're waiting for that news to break that a bid's been accepted. As soon as we got towards the transfer window and we still hadn't had a bid accepted, I thought this doesn't look great, because you think new owners come in and start spending money on transfers and stuff, don't they? You want a marquee signing and stuff like that. And the Glazers would have known that, they go, right, okay, you can come in, you can deal with all these transfers and whatnot. That didn't happen. And there is a sort of feeling, and you might even call it a feeling, that football and the money in football is moving like that direction. Even with a club like Manchester United that still need a lot of money spending on their infrastructure, which was the point Gary Neville was making on Sky, because he thinks the story's nonsense. He thinks the Glazers will sell. They might look and go, in a year or two, we can get another $1 billion.
Yeah. And
they are nothing but greedy, absolutely heartless business people who don't care about the club.
Yeah.
So if they can get a few extra quid, and well, more than a few extra quid, they're going to do that.
I'm not au fait with medical terminology, but I think that parasites work by they'll stay inside a host as long as they've got something to hold on to or to feed on. And as long as the Glazers feel that they can get more gold from the teat of the cash cow, then I believe that they will continue to stay at Manchester United. And like you say there, in terms of the TV money, it is going up and up and up. So what we can project to get in 2 years, it doesn't matter to them if they sell now or they sell in 2 years, they get rich.
You're right.
They make more money. Yeah. They haven't got to do a single thing for it. in 2 years. So they're literally under no pressure to do it.
There's more money coming into the game from the Middle East. We know, obviously, Sheikh Jassim's bid in Qatar and the Saudi Arabian League. Just there's more money coming into football. You might go, well, the money's over there, but a lot of it's coming over here. They're buying players for over here. They're investing over here. So that might be another thing. Plus, you've got the World Cup in the USA. There was talk of in that article, it mentioned it, that could generate more interest in football in general from American billionaires. So there might be some American billionaires after the World Cup who go, ooh, what's the biggest club in England? Manchester United. Who owns it? Oh, the Glazers. Oh, right, let's do a deal with them and let's come in with 8 billion or whatever. A lot of conjecture. I get it. And the issue is you never know what is going on in the minds of the Glazers. I don't think that they know. I think they're always arguing with each other from what we hear. Some of them wanted to sell straight away. Others wanted to hang on to it. It looks like the ones that have wanted to hang on to it have got their way. But we don't know that for a fact.
I read an interesting piece. You've heard of, is it Swiss Ramble?
Yeah.
Did you see the thread that they wrote on Saturday night? And they were saying that with Ten Hag doing so well last season, that may have been food for thought for the Glazers to actually stay, because obviously the money that's coming in from the Champions League, from winning the Carabao Cup and then more TV rights, and then that took them over the line for FFP. Because if United don't make top 4 again this season gone, then we'd have been knackered for FFP. Who could we have signed this summer? Don't you get 75 million in it, roughly? For
I don't. It's weird. It's also with FFP. I think we get hamstrung slightly because the Glazers don't invest any money.
Yeah.
If your owners invest money, that helps.
No, that's what I mean. So the money only came from
sales
from sales and from Champions League and
Champions League. Yeah. Santa Not says, evening guys, great to see him. Adam says, Ben Jacobs, who's been all over this story of the takeover, we've had him on Stretford Paddock a few times, said nothing has changed. So he's saying, look, don't panic, nothing's changed. The man Calorian is getting into the Jadon Sancho story, which we will talk about in a little bit. Daedric Rigg says, Jay, love you. Thank you. Boise says, good point. Motty, it's very rare, but it does happen like a broken clock twice a day. One of the questions or the issues that Gary Neville was raising is the fact that money needs to be spent at Manchester United. Like, you've been at Old Trafford as many times as I have. It's fallen apart.
Yeah.
And you can't keep just painting it. It needs serious, surgery. If not, I personally want to rebuild it. That's a different story. And most people disagree. They just want to revamp. But work needs to be done with it. The training ground needs work on it. There's at least probably minimum £1 billion that needs to go into Manchester United. You'd think.
You ever heard of the phrase slum landlord?
Yes.
Where they have houses that are, to the outside eye, may not be habitable. Inhabitable, is that right the word?
Habitable.
Habitable. But by law, they're all right to do so. Old Trafford is fit for purpose. It's not unsafe for people going into the stadium. The Carrington. This isn't me saying that I don't want any of these changes. By the way, Carrington is fit for purpose. If Manchester United as a club are doing enough to generate enough cash, whether that's yo-yoing in and out of the Champions League, and they can see more gold at the end of another rainbow, why would they? And whilst fans see that they need these sort of improvements, we've needed a decent central defensive midfielder this summer. We were looking for money down the back of the couch up until the last day of transfer window. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that United need, but there's no urgency for a single one of them under the Glazers. So why would they invest knowing that they can get more money in 2 years' time by doing nothing at all? They don't need to.
Yeah, that's the thing, innit? It's like, how urgent is this revamp? We know it as fans, it's needed.
That's different, isn't it? Yeah. We look at it as being urgent. To them...
Is it? Because I think you have to make some changes just in general with your upkeep
like painting the skirting boards when you're selling your gaff.
I think you're right. I think there's certain things you have to do, and you have to be compliant and all that. So I don't know the ins and outs and how sort of close United are to not being compliant. I gather we are, because we're all sat in that stadium every week still this year. But they might go, like you say, well, we don't. It's not like we have to do it, so we don't have to do it. We should do it. Well, that's different. Do you know what I mean? Should isn't the same as
fans' priorities
to do it.
Are different to the fans. And if you're watching out there, can you subscribe as well? Because we've been flying through the numbers in terms of views, but the subs haven't been matching. We're close to 9,000. It'd be great if we can get that this week.
Yeah, Whitbird in the chat says Luton Town next season. will be building a new ground and better than Manchester United. There's a shocking thought for you. Kenilworth Road will be better than Old Trafford.
I hate Luton.
John McAvey says...
As a place.
Do you?
Oh, have you ever been?
Yeah, I have family there, down near there.
I've never been anywhere with
minging,
that many roundabouts. I was coming back from Nebworth last year. It was
it's grim. It's Grimsby down there. James McAvey, or John McAvey, sorry, says, is it about money? If it was, why not take the $1 billion each? They are taking pleasure in driving us mad because they're thinking we could probably get $2 billion each or 1.5 billion each or whatever.
If me and you could sell Scotty and Motty now, for 10 quid, but we didn't have to do anything, and in 5 years we could make 40 quid. What would we do? It depends how hungry we are. Like, you know what I mean?
Say, like, you know my feelings with money and how well I balance my budget.
But from a business point of view, if they have no emotional attachment to the club, so from a business point of view, they don't have to do a thing except for watch the sort of the value go up.
Yeah, I think
it's annoying. It's frustrating.
I think it's FOMO in it as well. It's like that fear that they sell now, and then they watch, and in a few years' time, the club, let's say worst case scenario for them, the club becomes worth 10 billion.
It's like the speedboat off Bullseye. It's like,
what you could have won, and they're like, oh, we just held out. Or if Eric Ten Hag does a madness, someone's like the Champions League or something, and it's like, oh,
how much money does one man?
It's horrible, isn't it? Because they've not put a penny in. They haven't put any of their own money in. Me and you and anyone who's watching, if you've so much as, spent a penny on Manchester United Football Club, if you've subscribed to Sky or whatever to watch United, or if you've been at the ground, or if you've bought a programme, or if you've done anything where you've parted with money because of Manchester United Football Club, you have spent more than the Glazers have. They have not spent a penny of their own money, and that is the annoying thing, and it really frustrates me when you get people, and there is they do have a bit of a point when some people say, oh, but, why are you all unhappy with the Glazers? United have spent money. Or the Glazers spent money. The Glazers haven't spent any of their own money. But one thing with the money we've spent, I think if the Glazers had any understanding of football, they could have maybe even had their cake and ate it. They could have, when they came in, you think, right, I've got Fergie, got the best manager arguably of all time. Yeah. Good squad. Had a good young squad when they came in. Even in 2005, we had Rooney, we had Ronaldo, we had Rio, we had all these players that would go on for another sort of 8 or 9 years. So you think, all right, don't need to worry about that. All we've got to do is just sustain this. You know what I mean? Make sure we get football people in who understand football. When Fergie retires, we've got a structure that works, and we can just keep spending a little bit of money, and we'll make more money. And the fans and the protests will probably carry on, but it'll be manageable, because if United are successful, it's not only... The protests don't just go on when United are not successful, by the way. They happen when they are successful.
Oh, no, I've been there,
they
mate.
do. But they might be more manageable. Do you know what I mean? Or we have a dialogue with the fans as well, which could help, and we get people in on PR, and we just try and...
success pacifies it somewhat.
It does somewhat. Not all the time. Not completely. You're right.
Not somewhat,
you've been there in green and gold and all that when we were reigning Premier League champions. But there's a way of doing this that makes it work. But they didn't do that. They got Ed Woodward in to replace David Gill. They brought in David Moyes as manager, who didn't have a jar of glue. They had no dialogue with fans whatsoever. They wasted money. They backed managers when they shouldn't have, and they didn't back managers when they should have. They went on this merry-go-round of managers, and it's like one manager who's completely different to the next, who's completely different to the one before him, and it was players coming in that one manager wanted and spent a lot of money on. He'd get sacked. The manager comes in and he goes, I don't want these players. There was no strategy or structure in there. And United have been suffering because of that. And we've somehow managed to not only have all this debt and waste all this money on furnishing this debt just to have the Glazers as owners, we've not only seen our stadium crumbling and falling behind, we've not only seen our training ground go from what was state-of-the-art to now almost vintage, we've also wasted money on players because we've had no real football people in charge. We've had an investment banker who didn't know what day it was.
No, and people think that we've had Woodward leaving as well, that made any difference. But Richard Arnold and is it John Murtaugh? They're not football people.
Yeah, I think John Murtaugh, to be fair, is, but I don't think...
Was he at Everton? Was he at Everton?
He was at the Premier League, then he was at Everton. I'm not here to sing John Murtaugh's praises by any stretch of the imagination. I think that what should have happened, as soon as in 2013, you get the nod from Fergie saying, look, I'm going. Because Fergie wouldn't have had a director of football, really. He didn't need one. That wasn't his way of working. But you go, okay, when Fergie retires, now's the time for change.
Yeah.
Let's change the structure. So instead of having just the manager who does everything and the chief exec who just, goes and does the transfers or whatever, let's have a director of football. Let's have a manager let's have a technical director, and let's have a chief executive.
Let's look at how the other successful football clubs are run. Why not do that? That just shows how inept they were at running the business. But on the flip side of it, is they've been very successful on the business model because they've still been making money hand over fist.
They have, but then again, I don't think they made the money they could have made and should have made, because if you look at the trajectory of profit and earnings, I should say, for Manchester United, Steve's always talks about this. I think from like 99 or to 2006-07, it was like that, and then it's slightly plateaued. Do you know what I mean? Where they've made bad business decisions, they've done deals that were obviously brought in money but didn't bring in as much money as they could have, and also it all connects with each other.
And it feeds off the success on the pitch.
Kieran Maguire, you know it better than anyone. Kieran Maguire from The Price of Football does good stuff. He spoke about it and he said, if you have success on that pitch, sponsors want that. Yeah. Sponsors want to be pictured with a Premier League trophy. Sponsors want their brand to be associated with Champions League winners, Champions League finalists, teams that are in the fucking Champions League. That'd be a start, wouldn't it? You've got a club that finishes 6th, 7th, sometimes in the Champions League, doesn't do anything in the Champions League, might get to the odd semi-final, might now and again win the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, whilst your rivals down the road are winning everything, and your rivals down the M62 over a period of time are winning a lot. It isn't attractive to a sponsor.
Not at all. And another side of it, looking back to the stadium, if you look at the sort of corporate and hospitality, Old Trafford used to be the one that everyone goes to, if you're doing business meetings or stuff, do you want a box or whatever, everyone will go Old Trafford for it. But now how dated it is, you compare it to City. Do you know what I mean? That in it, hospitality has lost a load of money because it's been downtrodden.
Exactly. And it's like the whole clubs now are obsessed with this match day experience. That's what you talk about.
Well, that's why you get the vintage. Come to Old Trafford and you'll see what it was like in the old days.
It was like in the 40s when Old Trafford was bombed.
A trip down memory lane. Well, this is Matt Busby Lane, memory lane.
Memory lane, because you're right, because you go to City and
it's modern.
Producer even talk about this. They have a show, they have a pre-match, and it's cringe, and I'd rather stick pins in my eyes and go there, but they have like a pre-match thing with all the build-up and, like there's people on the stage announcing the team and all that. There's a pub inside. There's all different types of food. It's very much like the Cosmopolitan or the Continental model, where if you go abroad to modern stadium, you'll have all different food courts and all that sort of stuff, or different food stands inside the stadium and outside. There's a thing where you could go to the ground 4 hours before kickoff and spend the day there, go and watch the match, and then spend after the game there as well. You go to Old Trafford, the only thing really around Old Trafford that's worth spending a few hours at is perhaps, and you might even agree with that, Hotel Football, which isn't even owned by the club. Gary Neville and his mates own that. So it's like they've not even got that bit right. And they've been here for 18 years. They could have gone, right, we need to box off Old Trafford and make it a full-on match day experience, and that'll bring in more revenue. So fans, because we have a lot of day trippers, and I'm not criticising that, it's part of what makes Manchester United, who come in for the day from abroad or from wherever, and it's their only, their one trip to Old Trafford that season, so they'll want to spend all day there. We create an atmosphere and something for them to do there, but they haven't. It's just, the usual stands, like you say, trip down memory lane. Nothing's changed.
It's because legacy fans, and it's like the legacy of what Manchester United used to be. It's becoming something of a museum. I spoke to Jim White from the Telegraph, and he was saying that when they took over Man City, about how they were trying to keep hold of the Mancunian identity, and he says it's done quite cynically. They've got like real sort of Mancunian old ladies who come in and do keep the accent and stuff like that. I think they've got some whippets running around the place.
Do you see all the adverts they do?
Yeah,
and it's like very, very mank, and this Manchester thing. They did the whole Hacienda thing.
That was very, very crass.
Black and yellow and all that.
It was indeed. Make sure you subscribe. And what likes are we on, Jay?
We're on 31 likes.
31?
Which is a disgrace. We've got over 250 people watching. Hit that like button. Witterbird says, but Jay, at least you get the cheapest pint. John McAvee says, seeing the renovated Bernabeu out is what we should have had. Sam says, it's time to stop blaming the Glazers and pointing your finger at the players.
Let's move on to that.
There is no excuse for players like Sancho, like Martial, like Maguire to think they can do niche and get away with it. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think you can be angry with the Glazers and think they're terrible owners, and think some of the players you've mentioned need to pull their weight. Let's talk about the players then, because obviously we went to the Emirates and we lost. Now, I don't think it was awful. It wasn't not great losing to Emirates, but there was part of that game me and you were on a watch along Stretford Paddock where it looked like we were going to get something from it. On another day, you might have got away with that, or you might have had the decisions going your way with a Garnacho offside, the Hoyland penalty shot or whatever, but we didn't. And we were very unlucky with injuries as well. To lose 3 centre-backs in one game was terrible. But what about those players that sorry, I've forgotten the kid's name, mentioned? I think it's Sam. Martial.
I think he played because of a lack of options up front and nothing more. And he played like a centre forward who has no interest in playing football.
He certainly didn't give Erik Ten Hag anything to think about, did he? With that performance, he didn't go, I'm going to show you. You don't need this young Scandinavian kid. I'm the main man here. No.
Yeah, he don't look like a man who was fighting for his place in the team. It looked like he was going through the motions, and then a performance looked like he was running through treacle. To be honest, for a centre forward leading the line, I know it was a difficult game to play centre forward in, but when you saw Hoyland come on, energy and runs and stuff like that, and Martial offered none of that the whole game. And the thing is, we're playing counter attacking football. That's what you need your strikers to do.
You need your strikers to keep up your wingers when they get the ball, and they don't do that.
Yeah.
And I like Martial.
Why do you like when you say this? Why do you like him?
I was getting to.
Tell me why you like him, Jay.
I like Martial when he's at it, or when he's been at it over the years. We've had some great moments, we've had some great goals. But I make the same point with Martial as made with David De Gea. That time was too long ago. It was 2020 when he banged in 23 goals in a season. You can't dine out on that.
How long ago was that?
You can't dine out on 3 years ago. You can't dine out on that goal on your debut against the Scousers or the goal against Everton in the FA Cup semi-final. Those goals were 7 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Now I know he's done things since then, but recently he's done now. He went on loan to Sevilla and got sent back basically. Lopetegui was like, he didn't do anything for him. He got there and Sevilla were in a sort of title race, and I think he scored 1 goal in the Europa League and got called out by his manager.
But isn't that embarrassing that we sent the player out because we didn't want him out on loan to Seville? It wasn't like go and try and get your fitness up, or try and get some more first team football as you're a young player coming through the ranks. We literally got rid of a number 9 who was going to be the hope of many fans pinned. What is it? The press don't know what they're talking about. Anthony Martial, blah blah blah, whatever the song is.
Yeah.
We didn't want him, so we sent him away. And then we welcome him back because we couldn't replace him.
Yeah, it's a joke.
It's pathetic. So when, like you said, they go hand in hand when you talk about these players and the calibre and what they're performing on the pitch. We're not replacing them because the Glazers aren't investing any of the money investing any of their money.
I said it all along, and I'm saying it last season. I knew it wouldn't happen, but it should have done. I was saying you need 2 strikers. You need to go out and get 2 strikers because you buy 1 striker, right? Who's your other striker? Martial, never fit, and if he is, he's not good enough. Marcus Rashford is not a number 9. He's not that guy. He's better off on the left. We saw it against Arsenal. His first goal this season, on the left. Against Forest, assisted 2 goals on the left. Playing down the middle against Spurs, didn't really do anything. He's not that guy. He's not. And then we're in a situation now where our only striker who appears to be worth anything is a 20-year-old who's played 32 minutes of English football.
We're actually pinning our hopes for the season on that lad,
I know.
for goals and stuff like
that.
Because there's no way, I don't think Rashford's going to match what he did last season, as brilliant a feat that was. That we're pinning our hopes on a 20-year-old lad or Anthony Martial. How can that be Manchester United?
This is the thing.
It's pathetic.
It is. And I understand
if you look at
Sam's
City,
point. Players need to step up. Sorry, go on.
Haaland and Alvarez up front. They're both world-class strikers.
And they didn't even pay that much for Alvarez,
And we've got one that's potential, and we've got one that's past the sell-by date.
And exactly, you've hit the nail on the head there, past the sell-by date. We should have sold him when we could have done.
Yeah.
There's been opportunities to sell Martial over the last few years, and we haven't taken him. And then we sent him out on that loan, which made matters worse, because everyone looked at him and went, well, we're not buying him, including Sevilla.
Yeah.
And now we're stuck with him. You look at another player as well, I'm going to get into now, who, I don't know, maybe if the right offer had come in for him in the summer, might have been on his way out. There was rumours that the club weren't actively looking to sell him, but would have accepted offers for him, but no offers came in, and that's Jadon Sancho. Now, what do you make of Jadon Sancho as a player before we get into the latest drama?
I was very excited for when Sancho came from Dortmund to Manchester United. Probably more so than a lot of players of late, because he was a young player, evidently could do it on the continent, and it wasn't like they were blistering performances he was putting in for Borussia Dortmund. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He was literally tearing teams apart, assists, goals, playing on either side, playing down the middle. So it's a young English player that's got experience, but also got the potential to sort. I thought the ceiling of the lad was ridiculous. Was up there, and even up until pre-season, I said, I think this season might be Jadon Sancho's season.
Yeah.
But it's just not materialised, and this sort of ding dong back and forth with Erik Ten Hag, he's only on to a hiding because you could. You said it on another show we were doing, like his credit's low. You've got nothing to back it up.
No.
If you're scoring goals, you're making assists. If he's having the same performances that he has at Dortmund,
yeah,
he can fire shots on social media about not doing this. At his manager, and it gives him a little bit more sort of credibility.
Yeah.
But sat there on his couch watching the game and then seeing what Ten Hag said and thought, I'm going to do a Karen Facebook post. Like, what are you saying about me? I'm like, grow up, man. It's just childish.
It is. His last season at Dortmund, his goal involvements was basically a goal a game. 38 appearances in all comps, 36 goal involvements, 16 goals, 20 assists if anyone cares. Very prolific, very involved. And I know the Bundesliga is different to English football.
Well, Haaland came from Dortmund and so did Gundogan.
So you still can compare it though. You can, and look, some of those were in the Champions League
De Bruyne,
as well,
Wolfsburg.
which was the Champions League is obviously the Champions League. Now look at what he's done at United, and it's nothing really. Last season in the Premier League, 26 appearances, 6 goals, 3 assists. It's okay. It's not amazing.
Wasn't there for 3 months to be fair.
But it's not the sort of numbers from and nowhere near the kind of numbers I expected from him. His first season, 29 appearances, 3 goals, 3 assists. It's just not. It's not really inspiring, is it? And it's certainly not inspiring to the point where you go, "Oh, if he's had a row with a manager, you'd still want to keep him. You still back him." You know what I mean? If he's having a row with a manager and he's not playing that well, you're gonna back the manager, aren't you?
Yeah.
The manager turns around and says, "Look, I don't want this guy at my football club." I mean, he's not going anywhere for 4 months, I don't think, unless he could go somewhere. Sorry, he could actually go somewhere, couldn't he?
But Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia for another week. I don't see that happening. No.
You don't see that happening?
It'd be strange things happen, but he's still only, 23?
He doesn't play 4 months for United anyway. If Ten Hag has anything to say about it.
I just don't know. I don't know if he'll go. I don't know the kid, but I don't know, would he move to Saudi maybe?
But isn't this going to be another similar sort of situation with the Martial and Højlund? Is that if Anthony we'll talk about Anthony in a minute as well, because we're not sure what his future looks like. But I like Sancho better on the right than I do the left, and I think Rashford fit cements the left-hand side.
100%.
Anthony's not fit or not playing great. Who do we bring in if Sancho? If he's fell out to the extent where he's not going to play him, we've got Palestra, another young lad with potential.
Yeah.
It's that we don't have 2 players for each position, I don't think, or of any certain calibre.
No, I think the 2 on the right, if you're going for Sancho on the right, I would have put him on the left, but if you're going for him on the right, you'd probably go Anthony, Sancho, and then Palestra usually plays on the right, slightly different, any type of player. He's a bit more down that wing and whip it in than the others. On the left, you'd have Marcus and Garnacho probably.
Yeah.
Down the middle, your 2 options, Højlund and Martial, which is basically one option. So the issue there is, like you're saying, it's all well and good having 2 players in 2 positions, but if one of those players is either an unproven youngster or someone whose form's deserted him, or the other one's someone who's made of glass, it ain't great. And attackers tend to get injured. They pick up knocks. It's very rare you get an attacker. I know it happened with Haaland last season, but even for him that was rare, where he didn't really get injured. Scousers have had it a few times where they've had all front 3 have played, but usually you miss an attacker for 3 or 4 games, whatever, so you have to bring someone in.
And form as well.
Yeah, form. If someone's not having someone, City used to do it. Riyad Mahrez' form's deserted him, right? Jack Grealish comes in or whoever. United, you need to have that option, and I just feel it's a bit. I feel like the drop off. Even I think the first options aren't great. If I'm being honest.
No.
Like if you used to start, say, Sancho and Anthony, then their numbers aren't anything to write home about. Marcus obviously had, his numbers are good, but on that right hand side, Anthony's numbers are disappointing.
It's
really.
Certainly for the sort of price tag that it comes with. I know that's none of his fault, but if he could do better. I didn't think he had a terrible game yesterday. What do you think about United's team as a whole? You look at, whilst the names are great, the Varans, the Casemiros, Eriksen, Rashford's a young player and he's still got a lot of career ahead of him. But these are aging players in a team that, for the best part of this season, there's only 4 games in, It's very average football.
Yeah.
And I got people saying that I was digging Ten Hag out yesterday, and I wasn't. I just feel like everyone should be open for criticism, but these are the players that he's brought in, a lot of them. But it's an aging team, or it's one that's out of form, or it's one that's got unfulfilled potential. Do you know what I mean? Like I just want a normal game where we go out, win. It's very run of the mill. What was a match like? Yeah, we won.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
Even the 2 wins this season have been, traumatic to a certain degree.
Everything's got to be dramatic.
Forest were 2-0 down, and Wolves was one of the worst performances I've seen.
It's quite rightly called the theatre, honestly.
Yeah. I hope, and it is hope rather than expectation, that some of these young players that are coming through have sort of been knocking on his first team, can live up to the expectations. So the likes of Garnacho, who's still only, 19, Kobe Mainoo, who everyone's been raving about, and I've seen him at the academy, and he's one of those where he has been earmarked for a little while, because there's a lot of players who obviously come through the academy do well, but there's some that are always looked at and you go, this kid here, and he was one of them, because he was in the under-18s when he was 15, I think. He's like one of those type of players. We saw briefly what he did in pre-season. It's such a shame he got injured against Real Madrid. Dango's another one who looks like a very good player. Again, it's too early to tell.
It's all promise.
But that's my point. My point is, if you've got another 2 seasons, say, or another season of Casemiro, how far away are some of these players? If you've got a season of mix, if Jadon Sancho does stay for another season, and you've got Garnacho in a season's time, is Garnacho going to be ready to start for Manchester United when he's 20 years old? When Kobe Mainoo's 19, 20, is he going to be ready to start for Manchester United? Are some of the other youngsters we've got available all around, is Alvaro Fernandez or whoever going to give you an option at fullback? Some of these players might coincide with the others going out, the likes of, because it is Varane, Eriksen and Casemiro, the main 3, aren't they? Yeah. 30. I think Bruno's 28, Martinez is like 25, I think Shaw's 28, Wan-Bissaka's 25, I think, and Onana's 24. So a lot of the players have got...
Yeah, but 2 of them are currently our best players, aren't they? Like, our best defender is Varane.
You see,
maybe not. I said with Martinez.
Yeah, cause the thing with Varane is I don't really feel like... I love Varane, but I think he's injured that often that you're almost sort of looking already for his replacement.
Is he worth the hassle? He's pretty much like Martial in that sense, isn't
it's like, I do love him.
A better performing.
Yeah, and it's just like, I think you're already looking at going... is it, who's next? Like, who is next? Like, for...
to come in through for him. What's the people saying in the comments on him?
In the comments, Witterberg says, hasn't Sancho done this before with Borussia Dortmund? Yes, he has. He said scapegoating. Wayne Davies says, price tag aside, Anthony's numbers aren't any worse than they were at Ajax. Anthony at Ajax, his numbers were, I think, was 8 goals, 4 assists. So what did you? We're going to get into Anthony and what's going on off the field. What did you make of his? What did you make of his performances so far at Manchester United?
I think I said yesterday in the watch along, he's very industrious as a player. He tries these little tricks, and they very rarely come off. But when they do, they look like he's a complete. He's got skills for days, but can't cross the ball into a box very well. His return for goals, I think, is very predictable. How he scores. I'd like him to go outside. I mean, I like old-fashioned wingers. Do you know what I mean? I don't like the sort of cutting inside, especially and he's only got 1 foot. If I want a right winger, I want it like Palestra down there that can run past players and whip it into the box. And the worry is now with a winger like Antony, if he hasn't got the ability to get the ball in the box, we've got what is he, 6'4" striker now, young lad who's known, who can score within the 6-yard box. Rashford's not known for his crosses. He can get a cross in, but you've got a target man now in centre forward. Where's his crosses coming from?
That's the issue, isn't it?
Because he can't. I'm not saying Anthony do too many crosses. He can cut in and bend it, but his assists aren't great.
No, they're not. That's the issue, isn't it? It's the thing with Anthony is he does a lot of good stuff, like tracking back. He can do quite well. He helps out defensively. He can beat his man, but it's that end product. And like you were saying there, assist-wise.
Yeah. I don't want my winger's strength to be defending.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
You've got both, really, don't you? Yeah. In modern game, I think you've got to have a bit of both.
You've got to have a bit of both. But if you're going to have one, I'd rather it weighs better with scoring goals or assists. Marcus Rashford down the left isn't great at tracking back. I mean, I thought it was pathetic yesterday when he let the goal, when he lost the ball for one of their goals. But when he's going forward, he is an attacking, he's a great player. Anthony doesn't do that. I think if you were looking like on a seesaw, he seems more balanced, more leaning towards a defensive winger than he does an attacking forward.
I know. It's crackers, isn't it? And it's just, at the moment, it just feels like there's a lot of questions, isn't there? There's a lot of questions going on about so many different aspects of Manchester United. It's like, what is going on defensively? What is going on with some of these options we've got in defence? What is going on with these wingers? What is going on with the striking situation? It feels like on all parts of the pitch, you've got serious questions being asked. Midfield, Mason Mount, he's not exactly hit the ground running. I know he's injured now, to be fair. It was not his fault. But his performances before that have raised a few question marks. Even the goalkeeper, I thought, did well. Some people have been questioning him. It just feels like all over the gaff at United. It's like, what's going on here? What's going on with him? What's going on with it? You know what I mean? It feels like it's a bit, I don't know, chaotic at the minute. We'll touch on this briefly. We've got to be careful what we say, obviously, because it's ongoing. There's this news broke out South American press. I think we were reporting it. I've seen it on Twitter today. That Anthony, I think it's his ex-girlfriend, has sort of made some accusations against him, and apparently has this sort of dossier or file with evidence that he's been guilty of domestic abuse. I don't want to sort of judge him. We don't know, and I think whilst anything like this is going on, even if it's in Brazil, I don't want to prejudice it with just cack-handed comments that aren't, legally sound. It adds to the air of chaos at United, whichever way you look at it. If there is an investigation, if he is charged, or by Brazilian police, whatever, the club have got to act. I know it's an if, because we don't know yet. But if they do, if he is,
he can't play for Manchester United until there's been a verdict of it, or of being not guilty. That's evident with what happened with Mason Greenwood. You can't not do that.
Yeah, and it's. I'm not trying to be flippant here. It's absolutely amazing to me that this has happened to we've had this situation twice now. In 2 years at United with
I think I said it.
I know it's different because Mason Greenwood was different, but the Greenwood situation we've spent so much time talking about. It's still going now. I saw Semra Hunter before saying she believes in. I love Semra Hunter. She's a great journalist. Does the stuff. Been on the channel. Knows the stuff in La Liga. Been on the channel quite a lot. She's saying that there's this sort of feeling that maybe the move to Getafe for Greenwood could lead to him coming back to United one day. That was what she was saying on
I
off the ball.
I think that's the case.
Well, there you go then. So you've got that. He's still not done. We thought, the Greenwood situation. No, it's not. And now you've got this Anthony one coming up where it's like, okay, what's going to happen here? Is Anthony going to be charged? I mean, there just seems to be a lot going on that needs dealing with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you've got the Jadon Sancho issue, which is completely different. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying it's another issue that Erik ten Hag's got to deal with. It's not great, is it?
No, if he wasn't bald, he'd certainly be losing his hair, that's for sure.
Not wrong with that, though. Witterbird in a super chat says, I know you're being an agony aunt, but Son's first game was yesterday. He went through all the emotions. Though he's hooked, he asked, why do you explain that's the game and why you love it? Why do we love the game? Yeah. I mean, my lad, it wasn't his first game. I took him to Wembley. His first trip to Wembley was the FA Cup final. I mean, well done for taking lad. It's always good to see people taking lad to the game. And I remember sitting there and going to him as we sat down. Do these today, son. Don't you worry. Yeah, we'll win today. As I was saying this, Gundogan scored, and I could see my lad, his bottom lip. I mean, to be fair, I was doing it as well. I thought, oh God, I genuinely thought this is going to be about 6 or 7-0, and I'm going to lose him as a United fan. But he's not. He's like his dad. He's dead bitter against it. He hates him. And I was almost relieved, and this is so too bitter, it makes me sick, that we only lost 2-1. Do you know what I mean? In an FA Cup final, City went on to win the treble, which is another low point of my time as a Manchester United fan. But yeah, it is a difficult time at Manchester United. But saying that, just went on a positive note, and Alex, we've not even heard from you yet. What do you make of what's going on at Manchester United?
Is Alexa the positive note?
He's got a microphone now, hasn't
he? Yeah, I mean, do you know what? Yesterday I did lose my head a bit. I think it's because I was a bit ill anyway, but I just couldn't. I think the thing for me, yesterday, you could, if that was the first time we'd lost a game in that way, or it was Ten Hag's first season. We lost a game that way. I'd go, fair enough. We were unlucky. Everything that happened at the end, and I think we were unlucky, very unlucky. You know, we were centimetres away from going 2-1 up, but the away game thing is really bad. Like 1 point out of 30 against the top 9 across 2 seasons now for Ten Hag. It's just not on, is it? And, you know, the home form's great. I mean, I've not seen us lose a game at Old Trafford since the Ralph Rangnick days. The last time I saw us lose at Old Trafford was Atletico Madrid at home, because the 2 games I missed last season, we lost at home to Brighton and home to Sociedad. So that shows how good the home form is. I've not seen us lose for nearly 2 years at home. The home form's great, but the away form is problematic. And you know, when you're entering the Champions League, you've got Bayern Munich away next. It sounds like a joke almost, doesn't it?
We've got Brighton next, haven't we?
But I mean, like, our
not
next
that that's
away
going to be
game.
easy.
Away game is
Yeah.
at the Allianz, yeah.
Yeah, it almost sounds kind of a bit of a joke, doesn't it? You go, oh, away form's bad. Who we play next? Bayern Munich. So he needs to do something in one of the away games, because it isn't good enough. And you know, I think Højlund's there now, which is better, but I think the away form has to improve, because obviously 1 in 30 just isn't good enough at all.
When you look at managers like, is it Disarray at Brighton?
Yeah, I know where you're going with this, but go on.
Or Postecoglou, I'd say it's
Postecoglou.
Postecoglou, that's a great name. For Spurs, I know he's only just gone in, you get that new manager bounce, but they have lost Harry Kane, and they're playing good football, man.
Yeah.
And Brighton are playing good football, and they've lost a lot of, over the last 12 months, they've lost a lot of good players, still playing decent football.
Yeah.
As a style.
Yeah.
Ten Hag, he's coming on for more and more criticism, and I do this every week because I like playing devil's advocate, because I just, what is it?
Well, with Postecoglou, he's been 4 games, I think. And also, I remember having a conversation, people saying about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after 4 games, or after 12 games, where he won all 12. And people go, oh, this kid, look at what he's done. And
then, you were talking to yourself?
Well, I was talking to every United fan on the planet, basically, at that time, was raving about him. Come on, let's have it right.
All right, Brighton then as an example.
Yeah. Brighton, Deserby's come in, and he's just kicked on from what Potter was doing. And let's not forget, I'm not saying he inherited a better team than what Ten Hag did. He didn't. But he inherited a group of players that knew how to play with each other, that were playing good football, and that were overachieving. Erik Ten Hag came into a team whose only goal scorer was Cristiano Ronaldo, who had a load of players that were underperforming and just weren't good enough, and had just finished 6th. And then he lost his top goal scorer through no fault of his own, and had to replace him with someone who was on loan from Burnley. So there's mitigating circumstances, I think. And I think that also with Ten Hag, there's perhaps a little bit more pragmatism has to come in at times, because you've got to win that trophy. You've got to do this. You've got to sort of. I think De Zerbi can afford to play a certain way and maybe lose some games and finish 7th or 8th. If Erik Ten Hag finishes 7th or 8th, he gets sacked.
What do you think happens now yesterday in the watch along in terms of moving forward? Not going to win the league.
No.
Top 4?
I still think Erik Ten Hag's a great manager.
This isn't a criticism of Ten Hag.
No, but let me finish.
Yeah.
And I think he needs time. And I think if you go back, like, the benchmark is always Fergie. Fergie had a very good first season, full season at United, finished 2nd. Next season, it was a little bit of a tail off. And what was happening is long-term things were being done behind the scenes. And I'm not saying that's completely the case, but Erik Ten Hag is doing things that other managers haven't, taking more of an interest in the under-21s. He's physically watching them and going and having an input. So he's doing things there. Some of the younger players who he's got in and around the first team, he's trying to nurture them. I also think it's difficult because some of our rivals, we didn't have Liverpool in the mix last season. They've kicked on this season. Chelsea is still a shambles, but they might.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully, you're right. But Pochettino might get it right eventually this season, and they might be there or thereabouts. You're right, Postecoglou's hit the ground running at Spurs. It's a packed sort of top 4 in it race.
Yeah.
Plus City have taken one of them spots. That's done, innit?
Yeah, so you're fighting for free.
Yeah, unless you have that 5th place, which I don't know what's happening with that. So I think there's mitigating circumstances that Erik Ten Hag's got to deal with. I just, personally, United fan, feel he deserves that patience.
I agree with you.
I know you're not criticising him.
No, I completely agree with you that he does deserve that patience. I'm just wondering whether he gets it. And we look at all these sort of circumstances that are happening away from the pitch. Do you fear that it could be the unravelling? you look at the injury record and you've got this stuff going on, say something happens to Antony and he can't play, and without a right winger, Varane gets injured for a long term, Højlund gets injured, and we haven't got a Martial we're relying on for goals. Do you know what I mean? We were talking before about a lot of question marks. If he's unable to answer all them questions, it's already proving to be a very difficult season. We thought it was hard last year, and he did amazing for his debut season. With the Ronaldo situation happening as well, and still lifted the Carabao Cup and got us back to the Champions League. That was an amazing feat. It was up there with Jose Mourinho finishing second. But I just think that with all the stuff happening behind the scenes, it just seems like an increasingly difficult year ahead for him.
No, it does. And let's not forget as well, as a United manager, you're basically 3 or 4 games away from being under pressure or getting sacked.
Yeah.
You know, Jose signed a new deal in January, I think, was sacked in December. Ole, something similar, signed a new deal, I think it was in the summer, and was sacked in autumn. Like, it's not, you know, it's not a club where you get loads and loads of time. If the wheels start coming off here, Van Gaal basically didn't get sacked at the time, but he lost his job when we lost those 3 games, didn't he?
Yeah.
Over Christmas.
It just feels like a couple of injuries could be really undoing.
One thing I will say, and this isn't MUTV, I call it as I see it. I do feel that Amrabat coming in is massive. Højlund coming in is massive, because we haven't seen any of them yet. We've seen half an hour of Højlund, nothing of Amrabat. I feel as well, if we can get Martinez back in his team playing, get 1 or 2 players who've been in and out back in, playing a bit more regularly, the players that played a lot last season, then we'll be all right. Yeah. I think we've got actually a decent 15 players there. I do. I think you've got your first team, and then you've got someone like Garnacho who can come off the bench. You've got Amrabat, who's a decent player. I like Victor Lindelof. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea. I think he's a good backup defender. The problem is when you lose 4 of your defenders and you're down to Harry Maguire. Do you know what I mean? And Johnny Evans. I don't
seeing Johnny Evans.
No, mate, I love Johnny Evans. Come on, it's like, what is this testimonial time? What is going on here? And I almost felt sorry for him, because the worst way to come back in the United team was 15 minutes at the Emirates when we're up against it. And no disrespect, John, I hate saying this, but it couldn't have gone much worse for him, could it? I think he basically left his man for one of the goals, and then got done about 3 times by Jesus, and then I think didn't the goal go up, bounce off him as well?
Yeah. Did you think somewhere in his head when he was on the pitch, goes, "Oh, this is a lot faster than him"?
Yeah, this is like, do you know them ones when you go to 5-a-side and you're up against a young lad and you're like, oh mate, and he's probably thinking, I can't even feign an injury because with that 10 men have made all the subs, like, I've got no defenders left. Yeah, it wasn't great for him, but I think I think for me, we've got the right manager.
Yep.
We've got the right squad. I don't like putting a lot on, 1 or 2 players, but it is big to have Amrabat and Højlund available in that squad. I think it makes, and also even Onana, I think, is a big positive signing. I think he's just getting going. I know he's had his critics already, but I think you can see.
Yeah. I like asking you the hard questions, because you feel more of optimism when you come back with answers like that, because I'm not pessimistic. I just like being troublesome. Right, is that we ending now?
Yeah, we've got a Patreon link in the chat. Join us for our Patreon for extra content. Whitburn says, don't forget to hit the like button, guys. Thanks for your support as well, Vic, and everyone else who's joined in. Boise says positive words, Jay. Yeah, try and end with a bit of positivity. God knows we need it at the minute.